You turn down another invitation, again. Your friends joke that you're becoming a hermit, but inside, you feel a wave of relief so intense it's almost embarrassing. They don't understand. Home isn't where you're hiding. It's where you finally feel safe, where the air doesn't feel thick, where your chest doesn't tighten with every interaction. And maybe you've convinced yourself this is just who you are, an introvert, a homebody, someone who simply prefers their own company. But lately, you've started to wonder, when did preference become compulsion? When did comfort become your entire world? There's something happening beneath the surface, something your mind isn't telling you. You know the feeling. Plans get canceled, and instead of disappointment, you feel this guilty rush of freedom. You're already imagining your evening, your couch, your shows, your controlled little universe where nothing unexpected can touch you. But then comes the guilt, the voice that whispers you're broken somehow, that normal people don't feel this way. Your pulse quickens just thinking about leaving, not because you hate people, but because out there, you have to be someone. At home, you can finally stop performing. This isn't laziness, it isn't antisocial behavior, and it definitely isn't something to apologize for. But there's a psychology behind it that goes deeper than personality tests and zodiac signs. Much deeper. In 1921, Carl Jung identified introversion as a fundamental personality trait. He described people who recharge through solitude, who find energy in internal reflection rather than external stimulation. But what you're experiencing might be something more complex than simple introversion. Psychologists have observed patterns in people who don't just prefer home, they need it. They've built entire emotional architectures around it. Your home isn't just a place, it's a nervous system regulator, a psychological fortress, and sometimes it's a time machine taking you back to the first place you ever felt safe. But here's what no one tells you about loving home too much. Sometimes what feels like preference is actually a protection mechanism that learned to disguise itself as personality. Think back, way back, to your childhood bedroom. Can you remember what it felt like to close that door? For some of you, it was the only place where no one could hurt you, where raised voices couldn't reach, where expectations disappeared. Your developing brain cataloged this information carefully. Inside equals safe, outside equals threat. Pattern recognition locked in before you even understood what was happening. And now, decades later, your body still remembers. You might notice certain things about yourself. Checking the time obsessively when you're out, mentally calculating how much longer you have to stay before leaving becomes socially acceptable. Planning escape routes at gatherings, feeling genuinely exhausted after small talk, but energized after hours alone. Your friends think you're flaky. You think you're defective. Neither is true. Attachment theory, developed by Dr. John Bowlby in 1958, explains how our earliest environments literally shape our nervous systems. If home was chaotic, unpredictable, or emotionally volatile, your child self learned that controlling your environment was the only way to feel safe. If home was your only refuge from a harsh outside world, you learned that safety has walls and a door that locks. You're not weak, you're adapted. Your nervous system became an expert at survival, but sometimes adaptation becomes trap. Here's where things take a darker turn. That hypervigilance you feel in public spaces, the constant scanning for threats, for judgment, for anything that might go wrong, that's not personality. That's a nervous system that never learned to downregulate in the presence of others. Your body is literally in a different state when you're home. Cortisol drops, heart rate variability improves. The sympathetic nervous system finally takes a break. You're not controlling your environment, you're recreating the womb. Safety through containment, predictability through isolation. And the most disturbing part? People who love staying home often come from homes that felt deeply unsafe. The adult creates the sanctuary the child never had. You're not returning to something, you're building it for the first time. A therapist once worked with a woman who hadn't left her apartment for 3 months, not because she couldn't, but because she didn't want to. During sessions, they discovered something unexpected. Her mother had been wildly unpredictable, loving one moment, rageful the next. The child never knew which version she'd encounter when she came home from school. As an adult, she'd created a space where nothing could surprise her, where every object stayed exactly where she placed it, where emotional weather was always 72 degrees and calm. Her home wasn't her sanctuary, it was her revenge against chaos. Research from UCLA's Department of Psychology in 2019 found that 68% of self-identified homebodies experience some form of childhood instability. Not always trauma with a capital T, but chronic unpredictability. Homes where emotions swung wildly. Parents who were emotionally absent. Siblings who were cruel. Schools that felt like battlegrounds. Home became the only place where their nervous system could exhale. Your body keeps the score, as trauma researcher Bessel van der Kolk famously wrote. And your body has decided that within your four walls, the score is manageable. Step outside, and the game changes. The rules become unclear. You have to perform a version of yourself that feels like wearing clothes that don't quite fit. But here's the thing, nobody talks about. That exhaustion you feel around people, it's not about the people. It's about the performance. The constant monitoring of your facial expressions, your tone, your body language. Making sure you're giving enough but not too much. Being interesting but not attention-seeking. Present but not needy. At home, the mask comes off. The real you doesn't have to audition for acceptance. And if you've spent your whole life auditioning, that relief is intoxicating. Let's be clear about something. This isn't weakness. Your nervous system is protecting you the only way it knows how. It learned early that the world outside can hurt you, disappoint you, demand things you don't have the energy to give. So it built you a safe room in your mind. And you decorated it with blankets and books and all the things that feel like armor disguised as comfort. There's wisdom in that. Real wisdom. But there's also a question you need to ask yourself. When does sanctuary become cage? Because protection can calcify into prison if you're not careful. The nervous system that once saved you can become the warden that keeps you small. You might look around one day and realize your world has shrunk to the size of your living room, that the friends stopped calling, that opportunities passed by because they required you to show up in spaces that didn't feel controllable. And the cruelest part? You might tell yourself, you chose this, that you prefer it this way. But preference and fear can look identical if you're not paying attention. So, what do you do with this information? How do you honor your need for safety while not letting it consume your entire existence? Start with 10 minutes. That's it. Commit to leaving your home for just 10 minutes. Not for socializing, not for productivity. Just for exposure. Walk to the end of your street. Sit on your porch. Stand in your yard. Then return to safety. What you're doing is retraining your nervous system, proving to that ancient protective part of your brain that the world outside doesn't automatically destroy you.
The door opens both ways. You can always come back, create transitional spaces, find a cafe that feels like an extension of your living room, a library corner, a specific park bench. Places that exist between the total control of home and the chaos of the world. Your nervous system needs stepping stones, not cliffs to jump off. And here's the refrain that might change everything. You're not avoiding people. You're replenishing yourself. There's a profound difference between isolation born from fear and solitude chosen from wisdom. One shrinks you, the other expands you. Learn to tell the difference. The people who truly love you will understand that you're not rejecting them when you choose home. You're preserving the energy that makes you capable of genuine connection when you do show up. Quality over quantity isn't just a cliche. For nervous systems like yours, it's survival strategy. But there's something even deeper we need to excavate, something that might make you uncomfortable. Sometimes you're not staying home because you love it there. You're staying because you never learned that you're allowed to take up space elsewhere, that your presence isn't a burden, that your needs are legitimate, that the world outside your door isn't waiting to reject you the moment you fully show up. Your home isn't actually the issue. It's what home represents. It's the only place you've given yourself permission to exist without apology. What if the real work isn't about forcing yourself into the world? What if it's about bringing that permission with you when you leave? Your body learned early that it wasn't safe to be yourself in the presence of others, that love was conditional, that acceptance required performance, so you retreated to the only place where you could let your guard down. But you're not that powerless child anymore. You're an adult who gets to choose which nervous system patterns to keep and which ones to gently release. Your home isn't your prison. It isn't even your sanctuary. Really, it's your mirror. It reflects back the version of yourself you've been most comfortable with, small, controlled, protected, but also hidden, also diminished, also waiting. The version of you that exists only within those walls is safe, but is it whole? You don't have to become someone who loves parties and crowds. You don't have to betray your introverted nature or force yourself into spaces that genuinely deplete you, but you might need to examine whether you're protecting yourself or preventing yourself, whether you're honoring your needs or hiding from your potential, because the most dangerous thing isn't that you might be broken. It's that you might be so much more than you've allowed yourself to become. And staying home is the most comfortable way to never find out. So here's what I want you to sit with. Not answer right now, but really sit with. Are you staying home because it fills you up? Because it genuinely replenishes something essential in your soul? Or are you staying home because leaving reminds you of something you're not ready to face? Something about who you might become if you gave yourself permission to take up space in the world. Your home will always be there. That's the beautiful thing about sanctuary. But the question isn't whether you can return to it. The question is whether you're brave enough to leave.